so the dialogue has begun. And clearly, it's going to be an issue going into next spring if it's a little bit too late for this fall. What is the plan of your organization to continue? I want to say battling this legislation, because clearly it's going to come back up in the spring.
I think it is, and you know, our intent is to preserve local democracy and local participation of citizens. It's not about protecting turf. So as we move into next year and these issues rise again, we are comforted in knowing that both gubernatorial candidates, Tom Corbett and Dan Honorato, have both said that they'll have nothing to do with mandatory consolidations, and in particular changing the Constitution to try and do it. So that's encouraging, but you know, I think as we'll continue to be committed to looking for ways to save money for communities to be effective and more efficient. But at the same time, there will be those out there who will be, you know, looking to do bad things.
I think it's important to note that Representative Calderon was invited to join us today. He declined, but he certainly was invited. In the last 45 seconds, Dave, how does he respond to the notion that government that's closer to the people is more effective, that they can be more responsive and more accountable? How does he deal with that argument?
I think he's viewed that as being costly and duplicative. He talks a lot about fragmentation, and has said that, you know, you've got a bunch of part-time people making very important decisions that ought to be made by more full-time or professional bureaucrats or politicians, and we take issue with that.
Yet I can go to the county level in many counties across Pennsylvania and find some county commissioners or some clerks that might not be as meet such a high standard, and to be outshone by some township personnel.
Sure, and I think the counties recognize they've got burdens on what the services they're already providing, and for them to take over, you know, roads and bridges and plowing snow and filling potholes is just beyond their ability to respond.
So they're not too keen on the idea.
I don't think they're too keen on it, although there are some services that make sense to be delivered at the county level. 911 was one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to thank you very much for being with us today. And this is one of the pieces of legislation that we'll truly be following, and we'll hear a good bit about in the media. So we will see you back here, perhaps after the election, to do some analysis on where townships are going and where local government's going in Pennsylvania. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this with another segment of Behind the Headlines.
Behind the Headlines is sponsored in part by Connections Academy.
If you were going to build a school around your kid, how would you do it? Fewer distractions? More attention from the teacher? More flexible schedule? More parental involvement? We're Connections Academy, a free online public school that creates a learning experience more focused on your child. Help your child make a stronger connection to learning at Connections Academy.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And the American Home Bank, a nationally chartered and FDIC-insured yet locally owned and operated bank in central Pennsylvania. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States.
Hi, welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. And in this segment, we want to talk about politics. It's the political season, Mara.
Love politics.
We do. And what better person to talk about politics with than a Pennsylvania institution, Brad Bumsted, or ace reporter for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Brad.
you for having me on, Charlie.
It's nice of you to be here. You've been on the Hill almost as long as the Capitol building itself, so if there's anyone who understands Pennsylvania politics,
I'm sure he'll
it's
take
you.
that as a compliment.
I do. You know, I didn't think about any contemporary with Teddy Roosevelt. Or, you know, anything like that. But it's great to be here.
Well, we have two very competitive races for the governor's seat and for the U.S. Senate. I hardly know where to begin in terms of trying to portray these two races. Which one do you think is the most interesting?
Well, let's just start with some handicapping, if you will. I mean, I do think that Pat Toomey, the former congressman from Allentown, who almost beat Senator Arlen Specter 6 years ago in a Republican primary, clearly holds a lead at this point over Democrat Joe Sestak, but it's a narrower lead than Tom Corbett, a Republican, holds in the governor's race. And, so Toomey is clearly a favorite at this point, but not a heavy favorite. And when you take into account Pennsylvania's Democratic registration edge, 1.4 million voters, if Democrats can get Democratic voters to the polls, they can win one or both of these races. That's the real key. Wider lead for Corbett in all the polls. In fact, he's never trailed, and from going back way before the primary. In the primary, he faced Sam Rohr, Republican state rep from Berks County, and it was virtually no contest. So everybody says, and I believe that it's true, that it's Corbett's to lose. If he makes some monumental mistakes, says some really stupid things, it's possible that he could fall behind. But at this point, there's no reason to believe that's going to happen. I know the Democrats would disagree with that. Honorado says, he's mistake prone because he said some things about employment for folks who are on unemployment and getting back to work. But other than that, they're both attorneys. Dan Honorado's lawyer had been city controller, and Corbett is the attorney general, and he is very comfortable in front of a crowd in a courtroom. So I think they're both going to be good in debates.
Well, I noticed that we're seeing a lot of the Toomey Sestak ads here in central Pennsylvania. I know they tend to target it. I'm not seeing anything on the gubernatorial election, and it's right around the corner. So are you seeing are they focusing their
efforts in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, or are you seeing anything differently? Because I know you're right here in central Pennsylvania too.
No, I don't think they've just really kicked it off yet.
Okay.
I think that,
yet to come.
Yeah.
Okay.
Within a couple weeks from the airing of this show, probably won't be too long, and the Senate race. The other issue is they don't have as much money as Pat Toomey. Pat Toomey has raised as much or more than any Senate candidate in the country, and he had money to run stuff all summer on Sestak, which he did.
And he did, yeah,
Hammered
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Sestak had enough to be able to respond to some degree, but I just don't think in the governor's race they have that kind of cash.
Well, one of the responses that Sestak had, interestingly enough, is you hear that one of the strategies of the Democratic Party nationwide this fall will be that they are going to continue to run against G.W. Bush, continue to blame Bush for the economy and the job situation, and then also pile on Wall Street. And that's where they bring Pat Toomey in, don't they? And they'll try to paint Pat Toomey as a member of the evil Wall Street establishment, and he's as responsible.
A Wall Street wheeler dealer, they call him.
Mr. Derivative.
Yes, yes.
How well will that play in Pennsylvania? Would you guess?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's a good line of attack for the Democrats to pursue. Whether it's successful, I really can't say. Whether attacking George Bush at this point is a good idea, I have some doubt. I mean, that's he's past history, and yes, it's important in the context of the economy and why it is the way it is, whether Obama gets blamed or Bush gets blamed. But in a Senate race, I just don't see that as being that effective. So I think that Wall Street, maybe Bush, I'm not so sure.